It's time now for Money Matters with Maya Fisher-French. As you would know, July is National Savings Month, and we're going to take a closer look at the rands and cents and how you can stretch the rand, but also tax-free savings accounts. So Maya, always a pleasure to have you, and thank you so much for joining us. I think every time we speak, one is just reminded of what Benjamin Franklin had said, that if you don't plan, you then plan to fail. And this is also with regards to your finances, Maya, and that's why we don't get it right. You need a refresher from time to time. Good morning.
Absolutely. We all need that person to just sort of remind us and keep us on track. So maybe I'm that person. But
no, you're definitely that person. Yeah, sorry, Maya, before we even go into the free tax savings accounts, there's also an issue that we are generally not a society of savers. There's a Deloitte report, as you would know, that indicates that we're only at 0.5%. Or 0.5% of savings as well. What do you think we can attribute this to?
You know, I have a bugbear with this, and I think part of it, look, times are tough. I mean, you know, the economy has been really, really tough on us. Actually, for about 5 years now, salaries haven't kept up with inflation. We know that. So, but if we park that, even before then, we were not really a country of savers. And when I look at it, I just see so much money going to debt repayments. And I think, you know, we went into the 2000s and suddenly credit became very easily available and people used credit cards, personal loans, you know, to get the things they wanted without maybe perhaps fully understanding the consequences of having to repay that. And I always say to people, imagine if all the money that you are repaying on your short-term debt, your credit cards, your store cards, your personal loan was actually available to you. What would you do with it? And I think that's, to me, where a lot of our savings sits, which is why I'm always I go on so much about the importance of reducing that debt dependency.
And regardless, as you're saying, income potential is not the same, you know, and we understand that there's a lot of pressure on disposable income, unemployment, retrenchment, and just the responsibilities that you may have. But are you of the view that even with the meager or little bit that you have, you do have potential to save?
Absolutely. And I mean, I do this thing called Money Makeover Challenge, which we take 6 people through every year. And every year we find money in their budgets to help them start saving and paying off debt. So I've never not found the money. So it's always just about, as I said, and I think we talk about this often, is just tracking where your money is going. And let me tell you, even if it's 100 Rand a month or 200 Rand a month, you can open something like a tax-free savings account and actually start saving and building something towards your future. And I think knowing that you have some money growing somewhere can really give you a sense of empowerment, that this is not just about me trying to make paycheck to paycheck every single month. So I'm a really big believer that, you know, if you can just find that little bit of extra cash, no matter how small it is, start thinking about putting money away for the future.
Yeah, we were just having a chat off air with Gareth, and he was saying that the fact that we look at savings as an option, in other words, you know, you'd rather prioritize, be it instant gratification, having to buy a particular item or go out, as opposed to looking at savings as an absolute imperative, part of your living expenses as well.
Absolutely. You know, there's the adage is pay yourself first. So on payday, make sure you have something going into saving or investing. You know, it mustn't be. I've never come across anyone who's been successful at saving and investing who says, I'll do it with the money that's left over at the end of the month. Because let me tell you, there's never any money left over at the end of the month. Always start with it. It must be a debit order that goes off your account the day your salary hits. And you know what? You will adjust. You will learn to live within your means. But absolutely, you have to pay yourself first.
Yes, and with the savings as well, to protect it enough so that it does have the compound effect over a certain period, and not to have the knee-jerk reaction when there is an unanticipated family emergency, the roof caves in, or your parents need medical attention, you know, to safeguard that savings. But you also need a balance. You know, when you are required to help out, you often have no choice, really.
So for me, the starting point is the emergency fund, is that liquidity, because it's that liquidity that does exactly that for you. It makes sure it protects you against those events that you don't expect or you may not anticipate. Now, whilst we may not anticipate them, we know they're going to happen, if that makes sense. You may not know what the emergency is, but if I ask the viewers to vote now, in the last 3 months, did you have an unexpected expense? I would say probably 100% of them would say yes. So we know we have unexpected expenses. That's the known. What expense is the unknown. So having an emergency fund and always starting with at least, I always say, if you've got 15,000 Rand sitting somewhere that you know you can draw on in an emergency, that's a great starting point. Of course, you want to grow it to maybe 3 months of your living expenses, because then you really feel comfortable. But if you can just at least have that, it'll stop you having to go and borrow money, taking on perhaps short-term expensive loans. So I'm a really big believer of that. I would say that's my first step, is liquidity. But then even then, you know, maybe you've got a side hustle, a little bit of extra income that you can work somewhere. Maybe try use that to start actually investing for the long term. And as I said, you can start even with 100 Rand. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be putting in thousands of rands to invest. You can just start with a little bit.
Yeah, we try and avoid tax, not evade taxes, that would be illegal. But looking at the tax-free savings account, are these generally widely available at financial institutions?
Okay, I have to tell you that, you know, being Savings Month, I wanted to talk about this because this is my favorite investment product, because I can grow my money without paying tax. And, you know, as I said, I'm sure we all feel like we pay sufficient tax in South Africa. So you can, and this is something that National Treasury brought out to try and encourage savings. They did it, I think, in 2015, and I'm a big fan of these. Basically, it's a fund where you can contribute 36,000 Rand a year. They do cap it. You can't put more than that in a year. So that works out about 3,000 Rand a month, which I think is sufficient, you know, for many people. And they invest that, and you can put it in any investment, and the proceeds of that investment are not taxable. And it takes you about, if you think about it, they have a lifetime limit of 500,000 Rand. So they're saying, well, you can, all your contributions can add up to 500,000 Rand. It'll take you about 15 years to get there if you're putting in the full 36,000 a year. So we've got some time to keep investing. And just by the way, if you took that money and you opened up, for example, a unit trust or an exchange traded fund, which is, they all offer tax-free savings account options, and that fund grew at 10% per annum, which is pretty much a reasonable long-term expectation, you would have R1 million. If you did the 3,000 Rand a month, you would have R1 million at the end of those 15 years. And so I think that should be quite a good motivation for people. You could actually become a millionaire. And then the best part is you get that R1 million out tax-free. So you can see why I'm a rather big fan of it. I'd like to be a millionaire and not pay tax.
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't mind R1 million right now in hard, cold cash either, not having to pay tax. But Maya, as always, a pleasure being with you, and thank you for your wisdom when it comes to financial matters. That's Maya Fisher-French on July being a National Savings Month, and what you can do to improve your financial status and health as well.